Greeting my friends and welcome to another edition of Serving the Valley, a chance for you, the viewer, to learn about some outstanding service organizations and projects that are taking place right here in the Cedar Valley. In today's program, we put the spotlight on Cedar Falls trees, and I don't know how much you know about it. By the end of this program, hopefully you'll learn more about ways that you can be involved and help make this an even stronger program than it already is. And joining me here, Amy Hoyer and Betty Zeman, both board members with Cedar Falls Trees. And 25 years is a long time. And how proud are you of how far this program has built up and come over the last couple decades, Amy?
It's really exciting to see the number of trees that have been planted as a result of the programs funded by Cedar Falls Trees. I know in the 17 years that I've been involved with the organization and the numerous neighborhood plantings and the funding provided to nurseries through the Plant a Tree program. And just when we look back and count, we still keep records of the numbers of trees that get planted as a result of our work. I mean, it's really satisfying to know that people love trees and really want the benefits that shade trees provide to their heating and cooling and just the beauty of the trees themselves.
And Betty, I know you love trees, and you're a board member but actively involved with Cedar Falls Utilities, which does so much with this. So for someone who doesn't know, what is Cedar Falls Trees?
Well, Cedar Falls Trees is a volunteer group. It is funded by Cedar Falls Utilities, and the purpose of our group is to encourage shade tree planting in Cedar Falls for all the benefits that the community gets out of shade trees, which Amy started to talk about. You know, there are many, many benefits of shade trees. So we provide information for people who are thinking about planting shade trees, and we provide funding to help those trees get planted.
It's an outstanding service organization. We have some contact information for you. The website is always up to date with information, and you can definitely encourage you to go there and find out whether you're watching the show before the 2014 Sturgis Falls or whether after it. www.cfu.net/trees. And an interesting thing that we'll be talking about later on in the program is this shade tree walking tour. And there's a lot of unique creative ideas related to this project. And before we look at a video that tells a little bit more to the educational side of it, I'm curious to see, you mentioned 17 years. What led you into Cedar Falls Trees, and maybe why do you keep coming back and becoming actively involved for the last 17 years, Amy?
Well, I guess it was about 18 years ago. I was sitting on my front porch one day and I noticed a young man walking around the neighborhood, and he'd stop at a tree and he'd make notes, and then he'd wander on to another tree and make notes. And I did some investigating to find out why he was doing that. And I think he was an intern hired by the city, and he was cataloging the trees because many of the trees were lost, they were dying, or they were in decline. And so the city, being a Tree City USA, wanted to see where they stood as far as the trees went. And because of his walk around, I noticed that there were a lot of places we could use trees in our neighborhood. So I contacted Cedar Falls Trees and organized a neighborhood planting. And through that planting, I think we planted about 31 trees. Wow. That fall. And you know, now many of them are really beautiful trees. You know, I have two in my front yard, and my neighbor has one in her front yard, and sadly the storm the other night took one out in the parking of another neighbor's house. But there are some really nice, trees in their prime and that have plenty of growing years left in them as a result of that. So I keep coming back, and yeah, I'm a tree hugger.
And Betty, why is that so needed to have someone like Amy who is actively involved in? It's not like Amy's doing it by herself, but she's really doing a lot. And hopefully someone sees this program and says, I want to help Amy out. I want to help CFU out as well.
Right. So people like Amy who apply for one of our programs is called a neighborhood grant. And actually this year in 2014, we're funding 2 neighborhood grants. So what happens is someone in the neighborhood or a couple of friends in the neighborhood get together, they organize an area of a few blocks where a large number of the homeowners would like to add trees to the landscape. And sometimes those are brand new neighborhoods that have no trees at all. And sometimes they're neighborhoods like Amy's where many of the trees are at the end of their life and it's time to start thinking about replacing those trees. Of course, right now, a number of people are concerned that they may lose their ash trees because of the emerald ash borer. So this is really a time when many people who thought they had all the shade trees they needed in their yard are thinking about, gosh, maybe I am going to need to replace some trees. So our group is really here to help with that.
Great. Again, this is Cedar Falls Trees here on Serving the Valley. It was unique. Just last weekend, I was camping at Saylorville, and they had actually marked every emerald ash tree, so you could see the significant number. And in the campground or just walking around, it is impacting a huge percentage of trees, and obviously, hopefully, not all of them leave. But you want to be proactive with that, and that's exactly what we're doing here with Cedar Falls Trees. Well, we're going to take a quick break and watch a video that was produced for Cedar Falls City News. It talks a little bit more about the educational part of the program, Cedar Falls Trees, and then we'll be back with a lot more information about Cedar Falls Trees, sponsored by Cedar Falls Utilities. Here's that story.
Cedar Falls Trees is a volunteer organization with the purpose of promoting the planting of shade trees in Cedar Falls. But why shade trees? Besides the beauty of them, trees benefit air quality by absorbing carbon dioxide and emitting oxygen, as well as slowing down stormwater runoff and filtering the soil, increasing soil quality.
And then one of the big benefits of shade is energy efficiency. So if your roof is shaded, in particular in the summer, that means your air conditioner won't have to work as hard, so you won't use as much electricity. That will help you keep your utility bill down.
The 20-year-old volunteer organization focuses on 2 main aspects: to provide the community with information about shade trees and to provide money to help residents plant shade trees. They have a number of cost-sharing programs, but one of their most well-known ones is the Plant a Tree program. Under this program, Cedar Falls residents can get a 40% discount on shade trees for up to a $100 discount per year. By going to their website at cfu.net/trees, people can see a list of approved species list, which helps when deciding which tree they would like to buy. One important thing to remember when deciding which tree to plant is how big it's going to be at maturity.
Because the trees are small when you plant them, but you have to remember that you're planting a baby elephant. That tree is going to get very large. And so we find that the most common mistake that people make is to plant trees too close to the house, or too close to the driveway, or maybe even too close to the neighbor's house. So the best advice that we have for people is take a look at what the mature size of that tree will be, find out how wide the tree is going to be, and make sure that you take half the width and keep that far away from the house when you plant the tree.
However, sometimes reading about a tree and even looking at pictures online isn't enough information as seeing the tree in person, which led to their newest addition, the Shade Tree Tour.
Lots of times when people want to plant a new tree, they're not sure what to plant, and they may not be very familiar with the types of trees that are available. So when you're walking down the street and you see a tree you like, you might not know what kind of tree that is. So this year, Cedar Falls Trees has put together a self-guided walking tour. We're calling it the Shade Tree Tour, and it's in a compact area in downtown Cedar Falls.
If you would like to plant a tree between the street and the sidewalk around your property, you must contact the Cedar Falls Park Division at 273-8624. They will check out your planting plans and determine if it will work around possible utility lines, pipes, and wires. If you want to learn more about Cedar Falls Trees, go to cfu.net/trees.
Thank you, Shelby, for producing that. It was very informative, and we're going to break down that story throughout the rest of this 30-minute show and talk about the Shade Tree Tour and talk about just these energy-efficient ways that trees can help with that. But before we go to our first break, City of Cedar Falls is just amazing with the amount of trees here. How proud are you to be able to just drive around or walk around, bike around, and know that you live in a city that is just so prominent with these variety of trees?
That's a great feeling because, you know, in the fall, especially when I hear people say, oh, we've got to go drive along the Mississippi River, or we've got to go to northeast Iowa up near Decorah to see beautiful fall foliage. I think, no, you don't. You just have to drive up and down the streets of Cedar Falls because it's all right here, the vivid oranges and purples and golds. And it's wonderful.
It's beautiful. And Betty, I know that we will talk about that shade tree tour that goes around with Sturgis Falls 2014. There's so many neighborhoods that have that variety of trees, these mature trees that are beautiful.
Yes, and actually the variety of trees is so important because, you know, a couple of decades ago, the tree population was devastated by Dutch elm disease. In our current time, we have the emerald ash borer that's expected to do a lot of damage to our tree stock. So it's so important that we encourage species diversity. And that really is one of the main reasons why we put this shade tree tour together. We know that people aren't very likely to plant a tree they've never heard of or never seen, or maybe they've seen it but they don't know that. So that's why we put this tour together, to help people just be exposed to the many species available that they can plant.
Very good. It's very educational, and again, it's a service project that if you're a Cedar Falls resident, you can take advantage of. We'll talk more with that as we continue to learn more about Cedar Falls trees, presented by Cedar Falls Utilities, as Serving the Valley continues right here on Channel 15, Cedar Falls Community Television.
Are you tired of wondering what you'll find when you open your cable bill each month? We don't think it should be a surprise. Switch to CFU Cable and Internet Service for the best value every day for every customer. CFU Cable brings you a huge HD lineup, and our all-fiber internet connection is always fast. You get reliable service and friendly local support. Call 268-5283 for free installation today from CFU, where every customer gets a great price.
Welcome back to Serving the Valley. Today's program puts a spotlight on Cedar Falls Trees. It's an organization that's been around for about 25 years and has done many outstanding things in our community. Amy Hoyer and Betty Zeman joining me here. And Amy, let's just talk. Who can get help? Who can participate with Cedar Falls Trees?
Anyone who's a Cedar Falls Utilities customer qualifies as someone who can take advantage of the programs of Cedar Falls Trees. And you know, there are people who are customers who don't live within the city limits of Cedar Falls, but as long as you're a Cedar Falls Utilities customer, you can take advantage of our program Plant a Tree, which is a program where if you need a tree in your yard and you visit one of the participating nurseries, we will subsidize up to $100 per year, 40% of the cost of that tree. And also the neighborhood grant program is part of what we do. And
well, and Betty, just the funding program with the shade trees, specifically shade trees, just talk more about that funding program.
Sure. So as Amy was saying, a Cedar Falls resident who wants to plant shade trees in their yard can choose from about 30 tree species that we support with 40% discounts.
Great.
And any family can take advantage of that program. It's actually a point of purchase discount program. So when you go to one of those participating retailers, they'll give you that discount if you live in Cedar Falls, as long as funding is still available for the season. So a fixed amount of money is allocated for each season. We've been running this program again for more than 20 years. So you don't have to pay for the tree and then write in for a rebate and wait for a check. You actually get the discount at the time you buy the tree.
So it's great to have the discount, it's great to have the funding, but it's also great to have that informative, the education that comes along with the Cedar Falls Trees program.
Yes.
It is. I think a lot of families use this as an opportunity to maybe plant a memorial tree in their yard for a loved one who may have died, or just for, you know, Mother's Day, for a tree for Mom, or Father's Day, a tree for Dad. So, you know, the program can cover a wide spectrum of needs.
I know that Amy was on the board a lot longer than I, but I know that when we started to offer the Plant-A-Tree program, one of the goals was to help people plant larger trees. Because, of course, the bigger the tree is that you buy at the nursery, the more it costs. And if you start with a bigger tree, then you get the benefits sooner, the benefits of shade and all the other benefits of shade trees.
Well, so there's so many trees in our area, and people continue to plant more and more. Let's talk about this summer, Sturgis Falls 2014, a special outreach program. I mean, it's a real creative idea on how we can continue that outreach and educational. Let's talk about the Shade Tree Tour.
Well, I think the conversation about establishing the tour this year came about because of the concern of the emerald ash borer and what it would do to people's trees, and if they, you know, needed to remove a tree and wanted to replace it, gee, what do I replace that tree with? And this gives people an opportunity to look at trees up close and look at their leaves and their bark and the size and think about what they want to plant in their own yard. And then it just kind of blossomed into, let's do it during Sturgis Falls because there's a lot of foot traffic around downtown Cedar Falls during Sturgis Falls. And we just thought that's a great time, and the whole committee really jumped on board and got really enthusiastic about the project.
Right.
And Betty, just talk about how someone could be involved. You know, they're watching this on TV and says, I want to take advantage of this. A lot's going on at that time.
Right.
What can they do besides going to the website?
Well, if they do go to our website, they will see the map of this self-guided shade tree walking tour. So that map is interactive. It's on Google Maps. If you click on any of the 25 pins on the map, you'll see a picture of the tree, a description of the tree. You can also download the map and print it if you'd like to walk around that area. We made quite an effort to find a large variety of trees in a short, compact amount of walking space. So the tree tour area is about 6 blocks wide. It's about 7 blocks from north to south, and we've identified 25 different tree species. And again, you can take that self-guided tour anytime this summer, but during Sturgis Falls weekend, we will actually have signs on the trees. I do think we want to make sure we caution people that most of the trees on the tour are in what we call the parking or the public right-of-way. So that's the area between the sidewalk and the street. There are a few of the trees that are actually in private yards, and with the permission of the homeowners, we're including some of those on the tour. They're close to the sidewalk, and people need to be courteous and make sure that they stay on the sidewalk and not walk into the private yards when they're taking the tour.
That's great that the homeowners that are allowing that as well. And again, the information is found on the website. And even if you missed it at Sturgis Falls 2014, the technology is there to go out and do a self-guided walking tour. www.cfu.net/trees. I see huge potential in this, and I'm not putting you on the spot, but I would think that this is a type of walking tour that the community will get involved with and do in future years potentially as well. Why is this good to physically go out and look at the different trees to get an understanding?
Well, I think we learn from the phone calls and contacts we have with customers. Don't you think from our Sturgis Falls booth we learned that people need this?
Yes, yes. It's amazing. We've had a booth at the Sturgis Falls Street Fair for as long as I can remember my time on the board, and it is amazing how many people stop and want to tell a story about a tree or have a question about a tree. And I mean, just from the numbers there, I think it tells us that people really are interested in trees and what they can do for us.
We always have a few potted nursery trees at our booth at Sturgis Falls. And we find that people always stop and ask, what kind of tree is this? What kind of tree is this? And you know, the fact is that a lot of people are not very familiar. I mean, they might know a maple when they see one, but beyond that,
yeah.
A lot of people really aren't very familiar, and there's nothing wrong with that. But before you plant a tree, you want to know how big is it going to get? What's it going to look like in the spring? What's it going to look like in the fall? What kind of soil conditions will it thrive in? Will it tolerate my clay soil, or will it tolerate a little wetter spot? So it really helps people make better decisions about what to plant.
Education and getting the word out, so vitally important. Again, we're talking with members from Cedar Falls Trees. We'll be back with our final segment to learn more about how funding is available, projects are available, and a guided shade tree walking tour is available as well. So join us with our final segment focusing on Cedar Falls Trees right after this.
Dear CFU, recently, we had a home energy audit through your House Calls program. The audit gave us information we needed to make good decisions, and your rebates helped us upgrade our insulation air conditioner and furnace. Our thanks to everyone at CFU. Without exception, your employees were helpful, friendly, and efficient. We feel lucky to live in a city with a utility service the caliber of CFU.
Cedar Falls Utilities, our family serving your family.
Thanks for joining us here on Serving the Valley. This edition looks at Cedar Falls Trees. It's a program put on by Cedar Falls Utilities. It's been around for a couple of decades. A special walking tour around Cedar Falls coming up on Sturgis Falls 2014. And I really want to talk about ways that people can get involved with Cedar Falls Trees. And one way is to be, just like both of you, a board member. What goes into being a board member? Why should someone give you a call and become a board member?
I think someone who is committed, of course, to loving trees, but also someone who is committed to the value, the conservation value that trees provide to us. You know, it's not even real. It's not about a grand knowledge of tree species and what kind of soil to plant them in or where to put them, but just that being willing to recognize that trees are vitally important to us, to our lives, and they do help us reduce our energy costs, and just to be willing to promote that.
It's enthusiasm more than anything, yeah. And if someone wanted to join the Trees Board, they should call Cedar Falls Utilities and just ask for Cedar Falls Trees. We'd be glad to talk to them and would certainly invite them to come to a board meeting. We meet 6 times a year. The board does allocate all the funding available for the programs to our various programs, and we review the applications for neighborhood grants and business grants through the tree programs.
So you don't have to be a tree expert to be a board member, but you have to be willing to give of your time and talents and be able to learn more to help out.
We plan an Arbor Day ceremony every year. You know, we try to figure out a good place to plant a tree that's a public tree. And that helps us keep our Cedar Falls, our designation as a Tree City USA. So, and we work very closely with the city with that, and I mean, the partnership is really important too.
Vitally important. And Betty, all good service organizations need some type of funding, and it just seems like the perfect match with Cedar Falls Utilities, because if I have shade trees, it brings down my utilities. And why is CFU so actively involved in a plethora of ways with this project?
Well, the initial reason why Cedar Falls Utilities started funding a shade tree program is as an energy efficiency program. Of course, we offer a lot of programs that give people rebates and incentives for energy efficiency measures, and this really is one of those programs. It's interesting, one of the trees on our tour this year is a bur oak, And I was looking at a national tree benefit calculator recently, and it showed that a tree like that is estimated to save about 400 kilowatt hours of electricity if it's shading a house. And just for context, an average electric customer, a homeowner in Cedar Falls, uses about 1,000 kilowatt hours a month on average. So 400 kilowatt hours, that's like a half of 1 month's electric bill just from having that shade tree shading your house. So there's a lot of value in shade trees.
It makes sense. It really does. So again, for more information, Cedar Falls Trees is the featured program here, doing an outstanding job for many years and well into the future as well. We talk about Cedar Falls being a tree community, and just you hear about it across. What type of distinctions do we have, and why are we unique here as Cedar Falls residents that maybe other cities of our size or other cities across the state don't have with our tree programs?
We have that local connection to our utility company, and we don't have to count on, you know, an outside entity to provide for us what Cedar Falls Utilities provides for us. So, you know, they're very friendly to the community, I think, and that's just one of the benefits of living in Cedar Falls.
It really is that group of local people who's deciding, you know, well, we have this funding, what's the best way for us to spend it to benefit the community? So that's really what the board does.
Well, we've talked about a lot on this program with the Shade Tree Tour and with going to the website and learning more information as well. If you are in the market for a tree, if you look at your property and say, I would like a shade tree, there are resources available. And again, Betty, if you just want to reiterate, you know, where do I go to get the tree, or what do I need to do to make that possible and to take advantage of that rebate?
Right. Well, on our website, cfu.net/trees, there's a list of the participating retailers. So to participate in our Plant a Tree program, you simply buy your tree from one of those retailers. It does need to be one of the trees on our approved species list, and again, that list is on the website. So as long as funding is available during any particular year, you can just get the discount when you buy the tree at one of those local retailers. So it's really simple.
It's simple, easy, and effective. Well, we thank you for your service that you've done as board members for the Cedar Falls Trees. I know I will be on that that tour and checking out these trees in our community. And definitely thank you for all that you do. All right, that will bring it to another edition of Serving the Valley to a close. As always, we encourage you to support financially or with your time these outstanding service organizations that we have right here in the Cedar Valley that makes this a beautiful place to live. Until next time, thanks for watching Serving the Valley.